So if you guys are not aware, Sony just recently did a major announcement that is going to change the landscape of their games being available on the PC platform, especially Steam. So Sony has been releasing some of their biggest titles lately on PC, and it's kind of showing how the sign of the times are changing, where exclusivity is kind of going out the window these days. And Sony was pretty much the arbiter of that by putting some of their biggest titles on Steam, like Spider-Man and God of War and whatnot. But one of the biggest issues, and there's two big issues, but we're going to talk about one in particular in this video today. One of the biggest issues by far plaguing Sony games on Steam is that they were region restricted. A lot of people were complaining about the regional restrictions, mainly due to the fact that there was no way for them to sign up for a PlayStation account in their particular region, country, or whatever the case may be. So they were completely restricted and unable to buy some of these games that were released on Steam. And now, through a ton of complaining that a lot of the corpo bootlickers don't like what you do, now because of all the complaining that happened on Steam and on PC, it seems like they're finally changing their tune. So before we get into this video, special shout out to the 89,900 of you that are subscribed to the channel. We are less than 100 subs away from hitting the magic 90,000. So if you are watching this video, consider hitting that subscribe button today if you're part of the 50% plus that are not subscribed. So let's get into this. This article is from PC Gamer, and it says Sony removes the regional restrictions on 4 of its biggest games on Steam. And it says slowly but surely, Sony seems to be moving towards a more sensible policy on Steam. The simple fact is, PC players do not like when you have restrictions on the content, right? This is something that PC players don't put up with, right? This is why we don't pay to access our online service, because we already pay for something called the internet, and there's no reason for me to pay a double dip in order to access online features that I should have for free by paying for an internet bill. But that's besides the point. Sony has removed regional restrictions on at least 4 of its biggest games on Steam, making them available for purchase in dozens of countries where they were previously out of reach. The changes were noticed and shared by Wario64 on Blue Sky. Bro, can we stop trying to make Blue Sky a thing, journalists? I know you guys love this echo chamber that you have, but quite frankly, your little echo chamber has been dying every single day, and Google Trends has proven that Blue Sky is going to go the way of the dodo bird. So stop using Blue Sky as if anybody gives a shit as to what's on Blue Sky. But anyway, 4 games. We got God of War Ragnarok, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Spider-Man 2, and Helldivers 2 had their regional restrictions removed. You can see the changes for yourself on the Steam DB pages for each particular video game. Now, this is huge news, right? These are not small titles. These are titles that would have benefited from the lack of restrictions on it in the first place. But unfortunately, Sony's going to do what Sony's going to do, because they really thought that they could convince PC players to sign up for one of the most hacked services available on this planet, known as PlayStation Network. They thought they could release their games and get people and force them to sign up for PlayStation. And by forcing them to sign up for PlayStation, that alienated the people who don't have access to be able to make a PlayStation account in their country for whatever that reason may be. So these are 4 major titles that, to be honest with you, ironically, all did less, aside from Helldivers 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, and God of War Ragnarok all sold far less than their initial counterparts. It's actually very interesting. So they desperately need to make sure that this goes through to get their increased sales. I'll be very curious to see what these numbers look like now that the regional, restrictions are taken off. But I want to be very clear in this video. This stuff only happens because there are people out there talking about it, right? Every time we talked about the forced requirement when it came to signing up for PlayStation during the Helldivers 2 debacle, I'm sure you guys remember that. Every time we brought this up in conversation, every single one of my videos was filled, literally littered with people who are shilling for PlayStation and trying to tell me that I'm the bad guy for wanting to see better change on the PC platform, telling me that, oh, all we do is complain, that you should just eat it up. You should just be, if you don't want to do it, then don't buy the game, blah, blah, whatever, whatever. These people are the ones that if they had it their way, Sony and every corporation will be able to get away with whatever the fuck they wanted to do. But the simple fact is, thanks to people who actually speak out on the internet and people that make it their point to call these companies out on every little stupid thing they do, they've been forced to make these decisions and revert these changes and to enact things that are inherently going to be pro-consumer at this point. But honestly, at this point, I think that Sony has learned their lesson regarding releasing video games on PC. If you're going to release them on PC, do it right. Sony's made no public comment about the removal of regional restrictions on the games, which is kind of appropriate given its whole approach to releasing games on PC. It was reluctant to do so for the years, and when it finally gave in, it discovered that putting PlayStation games on PC was basically a license to print money. But that didn't stop Sony from finding rakes to step on. A PSN sign-in requirement for Helldivers 2 was a catastrophically bad call that Sony made immeasurably worse by trying to power through it. It eventually gave in, but not before removing the game from sale in 177 countries where PlayStation Network is not available. And this is one of those things, again, if you remember that whole protest that was happening with Helldivers and how the reviews went to like insanely negative to the point where they made a meme out of it and they made like an in-game cape, on the they put like the graph on the back of a cape in game of Helldivers 2. It was a wild time, but it got changed to happen. It got actually made something happen, and it was a good thing overall. A more across the board approach to PSN requirements was rolled out in January of this year, but that obviously didn't last long. When Sony announced that PlayStation Network accounts will be optional for Spider-Man 2 and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, both of them unreleased at the time, as well as God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, but the regional restrictions on countries that don't offer PSN remained in place. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, here, the simple fact is I played Stellar Blade today for the first time on PC. Not the first time for Stellar Blade, but just the first time on PC. It asked me if I wanted to sign up for PlayStation. It told me if I was a good old boy and I signed up for PlayStation, they would give me an in-game item. And I saw the button on the bottom. That was nice and small because they don't want you to see it. And it said the word skip. And I hit that shit so fast and continued to play the game that I have. So that's how it should be, right? It should be an optional thing. I don't understand why it's forced on anybody. I never liked it when the other companies forced you to sign up for certain accounts, and I don't like it now with PlayStation, especially since PlayStation Network, like I said earlier in the video, one of the most hacked networks by far in existence. It's absolutely insane. Some observers have suggested that the runaway success of Stellar Blade on PC, which, by the way, can we talk about this really quick? I'm going to make a separate video that's going to release today talking about Stellar Blade, but I want you guys to understand something. Stellar Blade is on track to do better sales on PC than it ever did on PlayStation. That is insane. That is literally insane. Think about that. Stellar Blade is doing better numbers on PC than it is on PlayStation. How is it that people could try to show for PlayStation, right? And I'm not talking about the majority of console players. I'm talking about the little bit of fanboys that are out there. They're like, oh, you guys would be nothing without us. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Because they'll be like, oh, you guys need PlayStation games to be on PC. Otherwise, you have nothing. First off, you're retarded. And second off, PC is literally selling more than PlayStation on your own exclusive almost 2 years after the game came out. How are you letting yourselves get felted that hard? I don't even understand how that's possible. But again, that's neither here nor there. So Stellar Blade is doing amazing. And it just proves that if you take away these restrictions, you have a very easy way to print money. You have a very easy way to make money. We all know this. You guys know this. I know this. We all know this. It's a very easy way to make money. The formula is so simple. And this is why the journalists are so angry at Stellar Blade right now, which I'm going to go over again in another video. But they're currently melting down and they're trying to call the game a basically smut content. Mind you, these are the people that praised the dick and balls in Baldur's Gate 3, and they talked about how there were certain mods out there that made dicks bigger in Baldur's Gate 3. But no, even Stellar Blade, well, that's just smut. These people are melting down because the formula is very simple. Give people what they want. How is that so difficult? So I'm happy to see that Sony and PlayStation overall is giving gamers not necessarily what they want, because we've been saying we wanted this from the start, but finally giving in and giving players what they've wanted since the beginning and what they should have given since the beginning. There was no reason for this to be region restricted, and there was no reason for them to require the PlayStation account in order for you to play the game. The only reason why they wanted to do that is for two reasons. Number one, an easier way to ban you if they ever felt like they wanted to. And number two, it is quite frankly just the easiest way to steal your data, right? They want to steal your data and sell your data. That is it. Those two reasons are the only reasons why they want you to sign up for PlayStation. So again, you guys can let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about this? Is Sony giving in, finally, is it a good sign of things to come? Are we on the right track here when it comes to PC releases for PlayStation? Supposedly the titles that we so desperately need. Or is this just Sony giving in because honestly money talks and bullshit walks, right? Do the fanboys have a lot of bullshit, and do we have the money that actually talks? I don't know. You let me know in the comments down below. Special shout out to all of the 89,900 of you, again, who are subscribed. And if you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.